So this is the Dart website. If you are very interested in learning the Dart languages, of which I will advise you to, you should look into this website. You can access their documentation and their tutorials, right? So when you go to Docs and you go to Language Store, which is this, you can actually get basically a very simple introduction to the Dart language, right? And if you've done, again, Java before, which I believe you guys are probably doing or you will be doing, I'm sure you guys have done some C++ along the way. They should look very familiar to you because, again, a string is a string, an integer is an integer, and a boolean is a boolean, right? So if you can take probably a whole day and go through this, and you will become conversant with the Dart syntax or the Dart language, because again, it is very, very similar to most of the languages that you may have already tried. But when you are new, so you are a newbie, totally, maybe this is your first language, then I'll probably advise you to take some time to actually go through it to understand most of the concepts, because you need it advancing forward. Next one is that part. Now, there are times where maybe you are building your app and you are trying to write a logic. Now, this you don't want to, should I say, you want to basically think through the logic, right? Now, this online IDE helps you basically do that, and you can basically run it all in the browser, and just to like go through what you are thinking, like go through the steps in what you are thinking, right? So, and it's not only that, you can also try Flutter, right? So you can also write Flutter here. So if you're building a widget, you want to more or less experiment how that widget will look or feel, you can try it here. And then if you're okay, you can just move it to your code. Then, yeah, IDX. Good. So Project IDX is a very interesting project from Google. IDX helps you build apps all in the browser. They even give you the ability to access an emulator all in the browser. So for those whose laptop isn't powerful enough to run the Android emulator, right, or even for people that are using the very old MacBooks, you don't have access to the latest S code and stuff like that, you can actually build your app all in the browser using Project IDX, right? So there are a number of templates. You can build web applications, even backend services, mobile apps, AI, ML, databases, and other stuff, right? I mean, you have all this for free, which is very interesting. Yeah. So you can check it out. So if your laptop isn't powerful enough, you can check it out. If you also writing backend, but your laptop isn't allowing you to do a lot of stuff, you can check this out. How to run? I mean, it gives you the exact UI for VS Code. So it's not like a new text editor or ID that you have to learn, right? It's the same thing, but just that this is running on a virtual machine somewhere. Then we have the Flutter documentation itself. So this is the Flutter documentation, their website. They are showing some apps that were built with Flutter. As you can see, this is a very smooth game. that was built using Flutter, using the Flame engine, and other apps by different companies, Toyota, and so on and so forth. I think we've already gone through most of this. Yeah, so these are some companies using Flutter. I keep seeing people saying that Flutter is not used by a whole lot of companies, but the thing here is when a new technology comes out, a lot of big companies don't just jump on it, so they don't start rewriting their major products with that new technology, right? They slowly rewrite, and the new project that they have, they write those ones in the new framework. So that's how it works. So some of these companies, they already have apps that are built in native, that are built in React Native and all that. But what they are doing is Flutter has a feature called the add-on, or yeah, where you can add a Flutter app to an existing native app, and you'll be able to run it right. Alibaba does that a lot. So part of the Alibaba app is Flutter. Part of it is native, which means that there are some screens when you visit that screen, it's actually a Flutter app you're seeing, and there are some screens when you visit it is a native, the native code that you're seeing, right? Yeah. So these are some companies using Flutter, and there are lots of startups using Flutter now. And yeah, so we can head over to the documentation. Again, I'm not going to go through the development process, the installation process, because it's quite easy when you follow the steps. You should be able to get it down. Now, the cookbook is like a recipe book, right? You can follow the instructions to build different features or different apps based on what you are following. So if you already know Flutter and you are planning to advance, I will advise you to explore this, right? When you go to this URL, you should be able to access all this. So how to build a form, how to validate a form, even how to build games with Flutter, how to load images, like how to load images well. Most of us don't actually know how to load, especially network images. We just put it in there, and I mean it's quite nasty because I mean it's a network image, which it may take time to load, it may fail, it may succeed. So you need to handle all that state. You need to handle the caching of it so that the next time the user visits, they don't see the full thing, they see the cache version before the real thing loads up. So you get all that tutorial over here, right? So this is one. Then the next one is yeah, basically that's it, right? So yeah, I mean this also contains other things you want to learn in Flutter, like management, um, caching, handling user inputs, network, and all that, and even deploying your app to Play Store and App Store. You can learn all that over here. So before I continue, are there any questions? Are there any questions? I'm not seeing any hand raised, so I'm going to assume there are no questions. All right, then we will move on. So we'll be building a very simple app. Let me see if I can get this design. Yeah, this is what we will be building. Okay. Can we develop? Oh, let's see. Can we develop an app on the web, or we need the app Flutter on our machine? All right. So I think that was what I explained using this. Right. I did mention that you can develop a full Flutter app all in your browser, right? So that is on the web. So when I say your browser, I mean on the web, right? So with this project, let me see if I can actually clone it in there. Yeah, I need to get rid of some of them. Let me see. Who should I get rid of? All right, so let me try it again. So as you can see, it is setting up the environment. So it has cloned the code, and it is setting up the environment. I don't know if my Wi-Fi will be able to handle this. But let's see. Yeah. So as you can see, we have our code here. I mean, this is still my browser, right? I mean, as you can see, this is not my local ID. This is basically my browser. And it's asking me if I want to install. So I can actually install extensions here. Again, this is running on the virtual machine, right? So it's basically like you own a machine or a laptop somewhere in the world, and you are basically developing your app on it. So basically, yeah, this is the app, and this is basically everything. I mean, you can write code all in here. Yeah, let me see if can I run this. Okay, so it's installing all this. Yeah, so as I said, this is what we will be building, but I already have it built, and I would have loved to do it again, but since I don't have power, the I'm using a power bank for my Wi-Fi, and it's quite low. So once it goes off, I'll have to go offline. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through this UI with you. I'm going to break it down. I'll share the slides. You can go through it. You can go through the code. Then we'll take questions so that we make it much easier and more interactive. Right? You guys shouldn't be just quiet and listening. You should also contribute. So yeah, so this is complaining. It's complaining because we haven't installed this right. And oh yeah, you have access also to your terminal. So as I said, I mean this is like a laptop that you have, like a powerful laptop that you have somewhere in the world. So those whose laptop isn't powerful enough, you can always leverage on this, right? So I think now I can run this. So as you can see, so I think it's a Linux machine that this is running on. So I can run on the Linux machine, I can run it on the web. So if you're using the, I think the paid version, you should have access to Android. Android, yeah. I mean, they remove it from the free version because Android is actually quite expensive. It uses a lot of memory. So yeah, they took it out from the free version. But I mean, again, you can still run it on the web, and you should be you should be okay, unless you are doing something very specific to native Android or native iOS. So how do you create a new Flutter project, right? Let us start from that. Now, to develop Flutter apps, you need either an ID or a text editor. So either you want to use VS Code or any of the VS Code variations, right? Like WinServe and what's the name? Like all the other ones, right? Or you can use Android Studio or IntelliJ, right? You can use any of them also. Now, to create a new project, let me first start from Android Studio. So for Android Studio is going to cover Android Studio and IntelliJ because it's it's quite a similar UI. So first off, I mean, during your installation process, you have to basically install the Flutter plugin. So after doing this, you should then be able to see this option up here. Yeah, you see it up here. Since I have projects here, so or you see it somewhere here. So to create a new Flutter project, you just click on new Flutter project, and you see something like this. Oh, this is pointing to where you've installed the Flutter SDK. You click on next, and then over here you can give your project a name. Now remember, your project name has to be all lowercase, and there shouldn't be spacing under the name in the name. So it shouldn't be something like my school app. This is wrong, right? Um, it can't deal with spaces. So instead of space, you need to use an underscore, right? So and it has to be all lowercase. So like these are like, let me say like the rules. So after creating your project, after giving it the name, now when you go to the project type, so there are multiple types of projects you can create in Flutter. We have what we call applications. Application is the normal Android and iOS app you or the web app you create, right? That uses Flutter. And I mean, so these are like the normal apps that you see on Play Store and App Store, right? Now, when you move down, you see plugin. So plugin is basically a library. Now, this thing confuses a lot of people a lot, especially people that are from the web background, right? Now, in the mobile ecosystem, when we say a library refers to everything, plugins, packages, and all that, right? That's a library. So in the Flutter ecosystem, a plugin is a type of library that is dependent on native code. So when you take something like the camera plugin, right? So in it, for camera, you need access to the physical hardware of the device. That's how you're able to stream in the camera. You're able to access the camera. Now, You can't do this in Flutter just yet. And you have to go through the native platform, all the cross platform frameworks. They can't access the your device hardware directly, right? So usually they go through the native platform to access the hardware. So which means that for the camera plugin, someone actually wrote native Kotlin code, native Swift code to access the camera and bring all those information back to Flutter, right? So plugins access depend on native code to work. That's a plugin, which means that if you are developing a plugin, you have to write code for Android, iOS, web, which is JavaScript, or Wazen, Windows, which is C Sharp, Linux, which is C++, or C, then macOS, which is Swift, right? So you need to like write all this individually to get it to work. That's how it is. Now, when you say a package, so a package doesn't depend on native code, which means that a package is fully written in the Dart language. So by default, it runs on all the platforms, right? It doesn't depend on any native code in particular, so it's able to run on all the platforms. That is a package. So plugin native, package no native. Then we have module. So module is what I explained previously that Alibaba uses, right? So you can create your app, a Flutter app, and let's say you already have a native app that is running, but you want to create your new screens in Flutter or your new functionalities in Flutter. You can actually create that, and then you add Flutter to your native project as a module. Then in that case, when you build your app and you run it, part of it will be native, part of it will be Flutter. That's when you use the model. These three are basically add-ons. They are like the skeleton is basically a Flutter Pro project, so an application that has some structure already there for you to follow. Now, FFI plugin, it's another level of plugins. So now, instead of let's say using, let's say I want to access the device camera. So instead of me writing native Kotlin code or native Swift code, let's say there's already a library in C++ or C that can access the camera hardware, right? So using FFI, which is a new, so I say, it's not really a new technology, but it's a technology that was introduced to the Dart and Flutter ecosystem recently. You can consume a C++ or C library and then access those directly. So without having to go through Kotlin or Swift, you actually go through C++ rather to access the hardware. Since C++ and C can also access the hardware itself, you actually go through them. So if you want to do that, you want to go with that approach, then you select FFI plugin, which will set up everything for you. Then empty project is basically a project that doesn't contain anything, it's just empty. You basically build everything yourself. Like you add most of the setup files yourself. So after selecting what you want, probably application, you enter your organization name. Usually this becomes your bundle ID or your package name, which has to be unique to your application. So you can't go and copy someone's package name, right? Otherwise, you won't be able to deploy it to. Someone says the volume is low. Sorry. Yeah, you won't be able to deploy it to Play Store, App Store, because I mean there'll be conflict, right? And so this is usually, let's say, your website in reverse order. So if your website is, this is my website, right? Now in reverse, it becomes what? So like this, right? So you enter your website in the reverse order. So if something like google.com, right? It becomes com com.google. All right. Yeah. So it can be three, three words, four words, two words. Yeah. Then you select the native language that you want. I mean, Android still gives you the option, but iOS that doesn't. Right. So you can select that you want to Kotlin or Java and the platforms that you want to support. Then you just go ahead and click on create. Then this will create the project for you, and then you can get started. Now, going to, okay, you're going to VS Code, right? So this is my VS Code. Again, you have to install the Flutter extension for VS Code, this, right, to get started. Now, after doing this, you can then go to view command palettes, and when you search for Flutter over here, so when you type of Flutter, you see this option. So you just click on new project, and just like what I explained in Android Studio, right? You can see them here: application, empty application, skeleton application, module, package, and plugin. Right? You can see them here. So you select the one that you want. They'll ask you where you want to store it, then the name of the application. So you basically enter the application name, and when you enter, when you hit enter, it will create it for you, and you are good to go. You're good to go. So yeah. So basically, that is how to create a new project. This is taking time. All right, so let me continue. And so after you create your Flutter project, you should see a folder structure like this, very similar to this, right? Now, so let me quickly explain what each of these folders do because they are all important. Now, at the top level, you see a folder called .dat tools, right? And this is a generated file. So anytime you see a dot before a folder name or a file name, it is a generated file. We call them generated files or generated folder. Now you don't have to touch or you don't have to modify this because this is what your IDE or your text editor and the Flutter SDK uses to know the Flutter version you are using, the packages that you're also using, and basically configurations on based on your project. So it uses these things to determine all that, right? So you don't have to edit this in any way. If your project is becoming too big, like very grown, you can actually delete this. When you run your app, it will recreate it for you. It will recreate this particular folder. Now, we move to Android. So the Android folder is actually a complete Android app by itself. You can actually open this. Okay, I don't have the option here, but you can actually open this in Android Studio. So if it's let me see if I can find this project. I don't know if it's this. Okay. Yeah, let me just try and use this. So this folder, the Android folder, it's a complete Android project by itself. So if there's any chance where you or any instance where you have to write native code for your app, this is where you do it, right? So when you right click, you can see the option here, right? Open in Android Studio. So you can actually open this in Android Studio and then you can continue coding like your Java, your Kotlin code in there, right? And you'll be able to call that code in Flutter using what we call platform channels. And also, this is where you add your launcher icons, your splash screens, and your sign-in key, right? And all those and your permissions. So basically, things that are specific to Android apps, right? This is where you do them. Then we have the build folder. So this build folder is also a generated folder. It gets created when you run your app, right? So again, if your project is becoming too big, you can always delete this. I mean, once you run the project, it will get recreated for you. Then we have, I'll come up to this folder because this is quite important. So the next one is Linux. So some of you may not see this folder. I have enabled this. That's why I can see it. So Linux is also for running your code on the Linux platform. But remember this, if you are on a MacBook, you can run Android apps, you can run iOS apps, and you can run Mac OS app, you can run web apps, right? If you're on Windows, you can run Android app, you can run web, and you can run Windows. You can't run iOS app on Windows. It is not a Flutter limitation, it is an Apple thing. You can't run anything Apple on any other OS apart from a Mac OS, right? I know there are people who usually ask me, I want to run my app, I want to run an app on iOS simulator, but I'm using Windows. It is not possible. Sorry, you can't do that. Now, moving down, we have Mac OS. So Mac OS is again is for the Mac OS platform. So this helps you run your app on the Mac OS. Then you have, ignore this. We have test. So in the life of every engineer, you get to a point where you have to write test, right? You have to write either a unit test or integration test or coding test. It is paramount in your journey. You learn it because that's what defines you as an engineer. Because I mean, just writing code without writing test, it's some way. When you get to some organizations, they actually have that in their CI/CD pipeline, which means that when you write a feature and don't write test for it, it doesn't get passed and the feature doesn't get deployed, right? So in Flutter, if you want to write test, you do it in this folder. Then we have web. So the web is basically for running Flutter on the web, so in your browser. Then we have Windows. So those who are running Windows, you this helps you be able to run your app on Windows. Then we have other files. So again, you can ignore this. Then we have Git ignore. So Git ignore is basically, I'm probably sure we are all confident with Git. Git is different from GitHub. GitHub is where you keep your code, where you deploy to, it's a repository. Git is basically a version control mechanism, right? So you add your files that you don't want to push to GitHub or Bitbucket or GitLab. You add them here, and they'll be excluded when it is pushing your code. This .metadata again, it's a generated file. As you can even see here, don't control and should not be manually edited. So this file, you shouldn't edit it. It is just a file telling, again, the Flutter SDK that you have all these platforms enabled in your project, right? Then we have analysis option. So analysis option is like a linter. If you've done web app development before, you probably have used a linter before where it tells you that this code you're writing is not good, this is not how to write a code, or this is not optimized, so you should write it in a better way, right? We have the similar thing for Flutter called the analysis options. So basically, by default, you get this Flutter linter in there that has some default rules. So, like you can't create a class starting with a lowercase, right, and all that. So, if you have more rules you want to state yourself, you can always add them here. Then again, ignore this, ignore the Firebase one. This is another generate. This is a file for IntelliJ or Android Studio, right? So this is for Android Studio, and then we have the log file. So the log file basically is a file that states the package versions that you are using, and every time you run or you try to get this right, it looks at the ones that you have changed and the one that you haven't changed, and the one that you've changed, it will get the new version. The one that you haven't changed, it will maintain them, right? So this is like a list of all the packages that you have currently working in this project. Then we have the YAML file itself. Now this is a configuration file for Flutter. This is where you basically edit your version. So when you're deploying to Play Store, App Store, and you want to increase the version count, right? This is where you do it. So you increase this, you build and you deploy. That's how it works, right? This also states that is the version that you are running on, and also state that you have a dependency on Flutter, and then your dependencies, so the libraries you are using in your project, you state them here. By default, you always see these Cupertino icons in your project, right? So it means that you can actually use it in your project. Then, so this is dependencies that your code needs to run. Then we have dev dependencies. So these are dependencies that your code doesn't need it to run, but they are needed for you to develop. So they help you to develop your app, but your app can actually do without them and run without them. This is what dev dependency means. So these development dependencies, right? Something like writing test. Testing doesn't prevent your app from being built or being deployed to Play Store. You can always choose not to write test and build your app and deploy it. Your app will still run. So this is for development, right? Same as linter. The linter is for development when you're actually writing the code. Then moving down, we have configurations for Flutter, right? So right here, it says that we want to use material design. So this is true, which means that by default, you have access to the material design icon fonts in your project. Also, if you want to add assets, so image, if you want to add local images, you want to add videos, audio, and all that, you need to state them here. So you need to like declare them that, so that Flutter will know that, okay, this is the folder that contains all your asset files. So if you if you state that you need an asset file called home.png, I know where to go and look for it, right? So you state them here. You create the folder, then you just state them here. So you can do something like create a new folder and call it assets. And then you come here, so just uncomment this. And you can choose to add them in by individual files, or you can add the entire folder, right? So I'm going to change the folder name to assets. And that's it. So now everything that I add to this folder is being registered by Flutter, right? Now, if you also want to add custom fonts, you want to use custom fonts in your app, you state them here, right? So you state the font family, the weight, and all those other configuration. Then you're able to use them in your app. So this is okay. Now going back to the lib folder. Now the lib folder is where you actually write your Flutter code, right? Like this is where you you basically work everything out. So again, it has a main function. So this is a high level function, and this is the entry point of your application. As you can see, there are even 3 options here. You can ignore the rest. Run debug profile, right? So you can actually run your project using this. So let me quickly explain this code. Just this 2 parts, and we'll move forward. This is different. Now, if Flutter has this method called run app. Run app takes an argument which is of type or parameter, which is a widget. So again, in Flutter, everything is a widget. Now, what run app does is it creates the entry point of your tree. So consider Flutter as a tree, right? Now, when you invert the tree, how it looks. So you have the entry point, and inside that entry point, you have let's see if this. Okay, so I think we can look at this outline, right? So this is how Flutter actually sees your code, the code that you are writing. So this current code, this is how it is saying it. So as you can see, we have the entry point over here. And then inside this entry point, it is calling a function called run app. Where is it? Yeah, so this run app, and this run app is being attached to a widget, right? Called my app. So my app here is a widget. As you can see, it's a widget class that extends to stateless widget. So we have here, so it's like a tree. If you notice, we have main, then we have my app. Then under my app, we have material app. And under material app, we have homepage. And under homepage, we have scaffold. Under scaffold, we have app bar. Again, we have padding. So it's like everything is nested in there. That is how Flutter says your code. Right, so now going back to the widgets. In Flutter, there are two main types of widgets. We have what we call the stateless widget and the stateful widget. Now, it's quite mouthful. Let me explain it. So, a stateless widget, right, is a widget that when you create your view, or when it creates a view, right, the data in that view doesn't change. So basically, a stateless widget is a widget that when it creates its state, its state cannot be changed by itself. So it's like it's just create it and then that is it. It can only be changed by an external source or external force. So that is where state management comes in. So you can use a state management solution to change its state, but by itself, it can't change its state. That is a stateless widget. So I've seen people's comments that stateless widget doesn't have a state. That is not true. Stateless widgets have a state, but just that they can't be changed. That is it. Once they create, they cannot be changed. So even if you look at this, right? So this is a class that extends stateless widget. And the next thing we have here is it is overwriting a method called build, which means that when you create it, it's build, then that is it. It stops there. There's nothing else it can do. Now the other one is called stateful widget. So a stateful widget is basically a widget that has a state and can change its state during its life process or if its life cycle. It can modify its state as much as many times as it wants during its life cycle. That is the difference between them. So if you look at this state, so what is it? So this stateful widget, right? You can see that this it is overwriting something called create state. That is so this is overwriting build, but this is overriding create state. So the first thing it does is it creates the state. Then inside the state, that is when the build method, so you can ignore all this code, that is when the build method is actually being overridden. So it will create the state and then later on it build a UI, which means that during its life cycle, it can choose to change the state. That is why you can have a code called, okay, I don't have it here, but you can actually, so those who have done Flutter before, I'm sure once in a while you guys have written a code called init state, right? Um, what is this? I can't get my things. So there's this method, right, called init state, which is basically uh, a function that is overriding the initial state of your apps. So if there's something you want to initialize when your screen is loading for the first time, then you put it inside the init state because that is when the state is being initialized. Remember, the state is already created over here at the top here. So inside this, we are now more or less overriding most of the instances or most of the the life cycle of it, right? So these are the two main difference of widgets we have in Flutter, and this is what they do. So we have the stateless and the stateful. Now, there's this school of thought that using stateful widgets makes your app slow. That is wrong. It doesn't matter whether you're using a stateful widget or a stateless widget. It doesn't affect your app. So Okay, so I've already explained the folder structure already. So we can just look at this code and yeah, we can just look at this code. So again, this is what we are building, and I already built it, so I'm just going to take you through it so that we don't use so much time. I will basically explain the breakdowns or the process you use to basically create a UI like this, right? One thing I've noticed, I mean, with my years, I think I've been doing Flutter for about 8 years now, and so this is the 8th year, and I've mentored a number of people. What most people struggle to do is how to break down UIs. Yes, you get the UI. Yeah, you get the UI. It's part of the slide, so you get the UI. How? I mean, let me just do this. So when this is shared with you, you should see them down here. All right. All right. So what most people struggle to do is how to break down UIs and then build them, right? They feel overwhelmed. I mean, looking at this, it's actually overwhelming. But you need to know how to break it down and then how to attack each component. So, no, I should have access to this. Okay. So, let's just look at. I mean, so I want this part to be interactive. So, I don't have a full time program, but there are a lot of tutorials out there that you can use and also join community. So the GDG Accra, the GDG Kumasi, GDG Tamale. So these three groups are the major Google developer groups in Ghana. And since you're in Accra, GDG Accra usually organizes events, and you can get to meet other developers and engineers, interact with them, learn from them, and yeah. But I specifically don't organize programs because I usually don't have the time at my end. So yeah, but if you need, yeah, I mean there are other villages in Nigeria. I've been there myself. So there's Lagos. I know there's one in Port Harcourt. I mean, Nigeria actually has the highest number of Google developer groups in Africa. So there are quite a lot of them, right? If you want to discover them, just go to Google Developer. Yeah, go to this website, gdg.community.dev. and someone can paste it in the chat, and then you can sign up and you can find one that is closest to you. As you can see, these are some events by GDG Accra because I'm part of them. So the one that is closer to you, you can join and you can search for your city and just find the one that is very close to you, right? Now moving, all right. So I want this part to be interactive. So can someone tell me how? So if you are giving this UI to build this UI, how would you go about it? Like, what are the steps you take just to build this UI? Like, not in code, but like your mind map, or how would you go about? How would you think about it? Can someone just unmute and take us through their thought process? Anyone? I mean, you don't have to know Flutter to do this. This is more or less a general problem solving thing. So you don't have to already know Flutter before you can do this. I mean, just if you're given this and you already have the skill, how would you go about it? Anyone? All right. Yeah, give it a try.
Oh yeah, I just want to try. So I can start by building out reusable components. That's the nav bars,
Okay.
then the cards. All I would probably need is just changing text. Then the layout. I can create the files and start creating the layouts. I don't know.
Yeah, that is a very good attempt. Thank you very much. Anyone else? Anyone else want to try? Yeah. Yeah, give it a try.
So yeah, I'll go through the design and check for similar components like the navbar and the notebook containers, the chicken recipes. I'll check for similar containers like that. So I build them separately as either widgets or methods, then call so I can call them later on to make it easier for me.
All right. Yeah, that's a very good attempt. So, okay. So, I mean, what you both said is actually very correct and valid. If you are building an app, you need to always break it down components, um, into components because it helps make it more maintainable, right? Now, looking at this UI, my approach will probably be okay. Probably first is the layout. Now, looking at the layouting, I realize that everything follows a vertical manner, sort of, right? Everything is top to down, and then there's a button down here. So, in my app bar, looking at this, I have an image here, I have a text here, I have two images here. Then I have a button here. I'll probably use if I don't use, let's say, the component that's already there, like the app bar widget. If I want to build this from scratch totally, this is going to be a column. So the column widget, and this row will have this image I have two rows actually, or in fact three rows. So I have one row to house everything, right? This two thing. Then I have a row here, which is just this image code, and then you remove the icon, right? Now it just makes things a little hard on your part. Like you keep going back to the component and modifying the component. Usually, what I advise is you build everything out first, right? So you have this entire view. So going back to the code. Um, I need to look for the things. Okay, so this widget, right? So this notebook widget, let me go in there. So what I'm going, this particular thing, I'm going to first build it in the main page. I'm just going to build everything out. Then, your ID has a very useful tool that can help you extract this widget into its own file. So for instance, when I let me see if I can extract something. So let's say if I want to extract this text, right, the note here. When I click on it, you see this icon here. When I click on this icon, you see the first three options: extract it as a method, extract it as a local variable, extract it as a widget. So I can click on this and then I can just give it the name, call it note reader. And then when I hit enter, I hope you can see what's happening. So it extracted this, and then it's now like a class sort of. So it's can be located down here, which is this. So that is what I will do. I'll first build everything in there, then I'll now go back in there and then extract them individually. And over here, you can also move it to its own file. So when you click on this, you get the option again, and you can see move to file. So when I click on this to ask me where I want to move it to, when I say this folder and I click on move, it will take it away and it will create a new file in here, right? That is much easier and cleaner than always going back to the component and modifying the component, because you can easily modify it and it won't suit the first widget that you want it to look like in any way. So basically that is how you go back about your UI. You break it down into smaller bits and then you build it so like you are done. So let us go back to this. Looking at what we have over here, everything is static first of all. So um, we have, hope you guys can see. Um, all right. So we have the app bar, which is this long code again. You can choose to extract this and all that, right? We have this app bar, which contains this. So it has a leading, and I had to give it a width so it can fit into it. And the leading is this component, the circle avatar. which is this round thing over here. There's no image in there. Then we have the title, which is the text, which is this text over here, and the styling. So I like this way of styling because it takes the style from your team. So I always build my apps using themes. So theming is very important because it defines how you want your app to look like. Now, you may not get a chance to write all this code, right? I mean, I don't even write all this code. So I use this service, material foundation.github.io, right? So this is a material theme builder. Now, this, again, someone can, let me see if I can get this out there. So this website helps you generate a theme, not only for Flutter, but for web, for Android, for iOS. No, not for iOS, for Android, Jetpack, and some other stuff, right? Now, you can, if you want to have dynamic theming, you can actually upload an image, and it will try to, let me see if I can get an image. So let me use this image, right? So it will try to, as you can see, it has changed the entire color of the site. Everything is now green. So to try to extract the color from the image to build your theme for you. You can also modify like the themes yourself, and what you want your primary or error color and everything. If you want to add extra custom colors, you can also do that. Then you can go ahead and then, I mean, you can try out in all the contracts and also in dark mode and light mode, right? Then you can then go ahead and pick your font. So if you want your theme to come with a custom font, you can search for the font here, and then you select it for your headers and your body. So this uses the Google fonts. Then after you are done, so I think even the font updates this. So let me see if I can change to something weird. Yeah, good. So you can see this gets updated, right? So after you're done, then you export. So you're exporting these two things. And then you click on export here, which you can export for Android XML, you can export for Jetpack Compose, Flutter, Web CSS, or just as a JSON file. So when you click on Flutter, then it will basically give you a downloaded file, and in here you can see this story. So this is the util that contains, I think I can open them here. Okay. Good. So this is the main. So the main is just an example of how you can use the whole thing. As you can see here, we have everything. So it's referencing the text, referencing the theme, and how you can add it to your material app. Then the theming itself contains, you can see all the themes, and just also to generate everything for you. The next one is the util, which is for the text. So basically referencing the font that you choose, right? So yeah, basically this is what I use. And if you find it useful, you can also go ahead and use it. What was I? Yeah, good. So I like using this approach because this takes the each properties from the font that we created, and you can also choose to override some of the properties by using this, right? The copy width. You can use it to override some of the properties. Then we have our icon button, which is these two buttons here. And then inside the app bar, there's a property called button. So I added the text widget to the bottom, which is down here, right? So I can type in there. Yeah, so this is for the text field, and the text field also has its own decoration property to decorate it, how it looks like. Now I have a floating action button, which is this thing here, down here. It is called a floating action button, and this is the extended version. So there's one that is without extension, which is usually it's square, and then we have this. At first, they used to be rounded, but in the new material design specifications, they are now squared, right? And also, your app bar is now flattened instead of having an elevation. So yeah, I have this, and yeah, and that is it. So the rest of the other stuff is this UI. So let me just go ahead and create a new notebook and call it you can create it, add it over here. The colors are not predetermined, so it keeps taking the colors at random. Not the colors, yeah, let me see the colors here. The background image. So this is vertically scrolled, and yeah, it's all here. For this also, when you add a note, it gets added here. Right, and if the note is, I mean, you can actually add a number, and it tries to, so when you look at the code, you can see that I was actually trying to determine the length of the text to know whether to make it long or short. As you can see, this one is short, the text is short, so it's in a short box. If it's long, so it's in a long one, and yeah, so on and so forth. So this is not too complex actually. It's something that when, so you can see now we have this. So it's something where if you read, you can actually understand. Yeah. So once again, should we look at, yeah, so over here, good. So now the body, this entire body is a list view, right? Because we want it scrollable so that if there are more, let me see if I can add more and make it scrollable. So you can see you should be able to scroll the whole thing. So it's a list view. It has some padding, which is the spacing around this. So this is how to set a padding. And this means left, top, right, bottom. I mean, you can even put your cursor on it and you'll see the definitions over here. Then inside this list view, the first thing we have is a widget called notebooks, which is the one here at the top here. And then we have a size box. So this size box, I'm using it for spacing. Some people use padding. I like using size box for spacing because I don't like seeing too many paddings in my code. Then I have another size box. So someone has a question. Okay, fine. Yeah, ask.
Is size box like a container?
Yes. So a size box. So this is the property of a size box. I hope you can see. So it has very minimal um, information that is required. A key, a weight, a height, and a child. That is it. The reason why I don't like using container is container has so many properties, right? So this is a container. You can see it has all these properties, which we really don't need. All we need is like a height. So why should we use container? So even um, in some code bases, if you're using some particular linters, right? The linter will even tell you that you should change this to a size box. There are linters that actually do that. They will basically they'll draw a line here and tell you that this is unnecessary, so you should change it to a size box because that has little like properties or here. Now going down, I have another size box that has a height 164 and it has a list view in there. Now the reason why I have this size box here is because this is scrollable, right? So this is a scrollable widget. And scrollable widgets, one problem they have is they don't know they don't really know their width and height. All they know is they have to cover as many space as possible and scroll. So if this size box wasn't there, you can see the whole app or the whole UI has basically crashed because this list view here is trying to take the entire screen for itself, right? So for us to limit its area or where we want it to scroll, we are basically restricting it by adding a size box to say that okay, you have a height of 164, scroll within that height. And also we are stating that your scroll direction is horizontal, which means that you're not supposed to go up and down, you're not supposed to go left and right. That is it. So within this 164 height, it's going left and right. That is it. And inside this, we have different widgets. So we have a widget called notebook widget, which is this. So this is the first one, right? That has the add and the icon. Now, I don't know if I should explain how this works because it's pretty. So I have gesture. I think when I was showing you guys the breakdown of the Flutter architecture, there was a section for gesture, right? So this is actually coming from there. And inside this gesture, we have another size box because you want to use a stack. So a stack is like you want to put something on another, right? So you're basically stacking two widgets together. So inside the stack, the first widget is an image, which is the green thing you see over here. So when I go to my assets, you can actually see them here. You can actually see them, right? No, this is different. You can actually see them here. So basically what I mean is I'm putting one under, which is the image, and then I'm putting the text and the icon on it, right? So that is how this thing is built. So, and also, since I'm trying to use the same widget for everything, I'm checking, right? So as if you look up here, icon is nullable. So when you go into the Dart language, you come across something we call null safety, right? Which is an icon can be null or an icon can have the property of being null at a point in its life cycle. So I'm actually saying that this thing can be null. So in this case, the second widget here, there's no icon. So icon here is now, but icon here has a value, right? So we are saying that icon is now, and we are checking if it is not now, then we want to display the icon. But if it is now, nothing happens. Like it doesn't display anything. So that is the trick to separate the two. The rest is just a text widget and having different properties. And what again? Yeah, the position. So position is a widget that you use in a stack. So position. So a stack is like, let's say you have a table. You're trying to put something on the table. You can decide to put it at the corner of the table or in the center of the table, right? You will decide. So the positioning widget helps you determine whether the whatever you are placing on the table is should be at the left, at the right, at the center, or it should even take over the entire table, right? So we use the position widgets for that. So to basically position a widget or a child. So that's it for this. I mean, although it looks complex, but it's actually very simple. It's just a stack with an image, uh, a text, and gesture detector. That is it. Any questions so far? All right, I'll continue. Then going back to the home. Now we have this code here. So this code is a tricky one. I'll try and explain it. So a list view takes children, which is an array of widgets, right? Now, what we are doing over here is anytime you add, right? Anytime you click on this add, and I show this, and you enter something here, right? I have an array all the way to the top here. So I have an array here, this array, and I add what you are typing. So here, so this function create notebook, right? So I have an array, and I add what you are typing in that array. So I add the name and the folder color it should use, right? So I add it to the array, which means that when you add 6 items, you see 6 different things over here. The thing now is, where is this going? Good. We want to display everything in that array. Now, since list view is already taking a list of children, what we are doing is we are generating the other widgets from the array that I created, uh, which is this, right? So basically, what I'm saying is, look at the length of the array that contains the name of the folder, and then generate children based on that number. That is it. Now, this 3 dots is something we call the spread operator. This is a concept in programming, so almost all programming languages actually have it. So let me go to this. So when I have, let's say, array one, so this is an array, right, or a list, as we call it in that, and I have another one. So let me see, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is A, B, C. So these are like two, let me say, two different type of arrays. I want to combine the two, right? So I can then say array 3 is what? I mean, you can't, doing something like this, doing something like this doesn't make your code readable because it basically confuses, let me print this. It basically confuse anyone reading your code, right? Like it doesn't make it, it makes it hard to read basically. So what the right approach is, you actually create another array, which is the array 3, and then you spread array 1 and array 2 in there. So you're basically saying that take its children and pour it into array 3. Take array 2 children, which is this, and pour it into it. Then, I mean, when you're done, you basically get like an array. So you get a new array to work with. So that is what we are just doing here. So this is called the spread operator. You can read on it. I mean, it is in almost every language. So yeah, you can actually check it out and explore it. So basically, that's what we are doing here. So we are spreading all the children that we are generating, right, in back into the list view to get these things we have over here. So that is the trick. Then the next thing down here is just creating a text widget that has a C all, which is down here. I don't know whether you can see. And then we have this widget, which is the notebook here, which we converted into a class. Then we have this. So this is a third-party widget, right? So now, if you want to add a widget in Flutter, how do you do it? The first thing you have to probably do is go to where you can find them, which is this, app.dev. So this is the repository for Dart and Flutter libraries. So coming here, I mean, if you already know the name, you can search for the name, but sometimes you may not know, like, you know how the thing looks like, but you don't know the name, right? So I usually like using this website, Flutter Gems. So Flutter Gems is like it's a website that categorizes most of the widgets on here. So it puts them into a category. So sometimes when you are even scrolling through it, based on how you know that, okay, this is how I want it to look like, you can identify the group and easily explore it. So let's say we have something UI. There are different categories, so you can decide to see grid. So what we have looks like a grid, so I can go into grid, and then when I go in here, I can see different versions of them, right? And also they've added whether it has good maintenance, which means that the owner of the package is actively working on it. So it has good maintenance, the number of downloads, number of likes, average, and all. So you can basically know the health of the package just by exploring here, and then you can know which one you want to go with. So if let's say you would say, okay, I want to go with this, you can click on the read more, and you can now go to tab.dev and it will bring you to here. Then you can basically add it to your project and all that. So how do you add to your project? First of all, I mean, the installation process is here. All right. Like what I need is you need to first copy this. So you can copy this. Then you go to your project. I already have it. So let me add it to this project rather. So you go to your project. You go to the paspec.yaml, this YAML file. Remember, I mentioned that we will have this Cupertino icon always there for you. So just under this icon, you paste it. Make sure the indentation is correct. This doesn't use a semicolon, so it works with indentations. If your indentation is wrong, it may throw an error or it may never work. So make sure it is following this and you have it over here. So basically this is how to add a package to your project. After adding it, you can choose to click on this button here to download it, or if you're a fan of the terminal, you can type in flutter pap get, and then this will basically download it for you. Then you can then follow the README on how to use it, right? So these are like these are different layouts that they have. So they have this layout. They also have this layout, and this, and basically multiple layouts. So you can then follow the README. If for some reason the README isn't clear enough, you can actually locate the source code of the package itself by clicking on this, and you can actually see the source code of the package. Again, Flutter is open source, and you can then go to the examples, right? Then you go to the lib, then you can actually look at the code yourself. Like you can look at how the developer is using the package, and you can also follow it and then add it to your project. So this is how to add a package to your Flutter project. So that's what we did over here, which we use this method, and we were able to get this. And this is a custom grid tile, which is this widget over here, which it has a text. As you can see, a text here, which is the title. Then it has an icon. It has a boolean. So we are checking if it has been a favorite or not. And this type of widget switching is called the ternary operation, right? Again, this is very common in almost all programming languages. So when you go to the Dart, let me just probably search for it. So you can actually explore more on this. So this is what we call the ternary operation. So it's a shortcut for if and else statement. So instead of writing the whole if else, you use the ternary operation. So this is the condition, this is the true, this is the false. That is that. It is that simple. And then under this we have a text that is using a text that has expanded. So expanded widget is a widget that It helps each child to take over the parent, like take as much space in the parent as possible. So it makes it big enough to fit in the parent, to the parent widget, which is whatever we've stated, which is this. So basically, this is how this UI is built. Again, as I said, it may look complex when you look at the design, right? But when you break it down, it becomes easier or simple because now instead of building everything, you are just focusing on one aspect after the other until you are done. It's 5:30. Any question? I can take questions for the rest of the time. Any question? Yes?
Okay, I can see you're using a MacBook.
Yeah.
So I'm on a Windows laptop.
Okay.
And if I'm done, like I'm done with my code, or I probably just want to preview it. Now we are using an iOS, some iOS to preview. So this question is both for me using a Windows and you using a MacBook. Is it possible to preview using an iOS and Android devices, both on Mac and Windows?
Um, so to preview, let me see. Let me think about this. So you may be able to preview it, but it won't give you the exact feel as how it will run on an iOS device. Um, but so generally for Windows, you can't just run anything iOS, right? Unless maybe your laptop you turn into a what we call a Hackintosh. Hackintosh is basically installing a Mac OS on a laptop that isn't a MacBook, right? And it has its advantages and disadvantages anyway. But on Windows, you can't just run the iOS side of things. But I know there's this widget called I think device preview. Yeah, I don't know if it is still maintained anyway. But this device preview helps you. Yeah, so at least what they are doing here. So they're able to give you a sort of look and feel of other platforms, like with the same code, right? So, but it runs usually on the web, I think. Let me just try it in our project and see how it goes. Is this supposed to be added to the dependency? Okay. Okay, good. So I taught you guys how to add it manually, the dependency manually. There's also another way to add a dependency, right? When you go to view command palette and you search for, as you can see over here, dependency, you'll see these two options. So add dependency and add dev dependency, right? So when you select this, you can actually search for the dependency over here. It's called device preview. As you can see. Then when I select it, you see it's added to the project. So this is also another way if you don't want to leave your ID now going to the web and doing all that, you can just do everything here and you're good to go. So I think the next thing is we need to wrap our widget in this. So I'll go back to the main file here. I'll click on this click on the icon and say wrap with widget. Now replace it with what we copied, and then I'll import what we have. It uses a builder, so I need to change this to. Let me just get rid of all this. Change it to a builder that takes a context and returns a widget. Sorry. Yeah. So let me stop this and run it on the web. But my laptop is almost off. Let me run this in Chrome and see how it goes. Is it running? It's not running. Let me use my device. But basically, I hope you get the idea. So you can actually use this. Okay, even here, good. There's a demo here. You can actually use this to get to preview how your app will run. Good. So this is the app, and I mean it's running in the web, but there's a frame. There's an iOS frame for it. This is an iPhone 13. Let me change it to something Android to Android. Samsung Galaxy. So you can see the framework changes. So now the app is looking like an Android app. Tablet, medium, big, iPhone 12, iPad, and all that. Yeah. So I hope this answers your question. You can use this if you want to know how it will look like on Android, on iOS, but you can't run it on iOS. You can't run the iOS part of things from Windows. Any other question? Yeah, please ask. Oh, okay. For SVGs, I just use this. So SVG repo. Right. Yeah. For PNGs, I think I use icons 8. Yeah. Yeah. So I just use icons 8.
Does Icon Scout work?
Is that
Icon Scout, does it work?
the icon stuff?
Icon Scout.
What's that?
It's just like Icon 6.
Oh, okay. I mean, I don't know about it. Yeah.
Okay.
So this is if I need like a custom assets outside. But again, they are
But how do you embed it?
how do you do what?
Do you embed it into your code or you
Okay.
export?
So let's say I want something that is iOS based. So this is how iOS home looks like. So you can set to download it as a PNG or SVG, depending on what you want. So if it's PNG, which I won't advise you don't download icons as PNGs because they don't scale. You use SVG. So now I have it downloaded. Now I need to add it to my assets folder, right? So I can basically come to download. It's over here. I can bring it here, and I can now use it in my project. So I think the icons we have at the top here, can I change one of them? So yeah, I change it. So I'm going to rename this to home, right? What I copied, then I'm just going to say I want to display home.png. This is now an image. I think we have our app running. So yeah, so can you see it? I think it's so it's now here, right? Yeah. So that's, I mean, this is using asset files. Oh, okay. Icon scores. Yeah. I think I've heard of it. In fact, there are actually a lot of them. So usually your designer will determine which one you should use, or or basically you pick it from the Figma that yeah. Please add.
Okay, my question is, you know how you can embed a CDN into um, your folder, your project folder, and you can just easily call what you need. For example, let's say you need fonts, and you can call material font CDN into your project. Is that possible? How can you do that?
I don't get it. So you can. I mean, if you want fonts, right? When you search for fonts, you actually see quite a number of them, but the common one is the Google font, right? So if you want font, you can just like how we added that package, you can add it that same way, and then just call the font, right? Like just refer to the font family that you want, and that is it. But if you're talking about icons, right? Again, there are different icons out there. Um, you usually the UI UX designer determines what fonts, what icons you should use. So if you're using this icon, you can probably come here, search for it, and then you have access to it, right? And again, you can always read the README, because the README will tell you how to use the package. So you can see if I want a camera icon, this is how I have to call it. If I want a baseball, if I want airplay, so if I want battery empty, this is how I call it. So they have like two different, you have the line, and you have the solid. So yeah, basically that is it.
All right, thank you.
All right. And I think our thing is now running. So yeah, Android. Yeah. So you can always use this for that. Yeah. Any other question? Yes. Okay. Okay. So the first one is what? Whether it is responsive. So um, generally, it depends on how your UI is supposed to be. So yeah, so I think you can see my screen, right? So this is this plugin mocking how what we built we run on a desktop, right? So without any modification, in this regard, it is responsive. But there are some apps, it won't look good without doing some additional touches, right? Like some of them, they need to have a nav bar and all that. So in those regards, you will have to make those edits or those changes. And you can easily do that by determining the breakpoints and all that, right? So use the breakpoint to determine whether the app is running on a mobile, an iPad, or a desktop screen. Then you can then modify how you want it to look like. So it's usually dependent on your UI design or how you want your app to look like. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Now, the second one, space. So I think spacing is really dependent on, like, you can actually build everything without the need for Android Studio. But Android Studio usually comes in if you want the Android side of things, because if you want to manually download the Android SDK yourself and do the setup, the process is quite tedious. But Android Studio makes it easy for you to basically download the Android SDK and set it up. Also, if you want to, yeah, basically, I think that is its major use. Apart from that, you can actually do almost everything in VS Code. And yeah, you can also do almost in VS Code. If you also know the commands for Gradle, so let's say you want to sync Gradle or something is broken, you want to basically go into go into the Android side and sync and update this Gradle thing. What's the name? Yeah, like you want to update this and sync it so that it gets the latest version, or you want to go into your build.gradle, right? This configuration, and you want to change something, edit something, and make sure that what you did is the correct thing, right? You you probably need Android Studio. You can still do it in VS Code, all right, but I mean sometimes some of these things is better you do it in Android Studio. That will tell you if there's something wrong or not. Because VS Code wouldn't tell you if there's something until you actually run the code, and that's when it will tell that hey, maybe you've done something wrong. But for Android Studio, once you're making a change, if you put the code at at the wrong part of where it's supposed to be, to let you know that where you put it is not right. That's how these things work. Yeah. So again, you can use Android Studio to install the Android SDK and probably delete it. And it's perfectly fine. I mean, I don't have space myself. I think my space is even finished. Let's just yeah. So as you can see, I have like 24 gig left. So yeah, but I still need Android Studio because yes, sometimes something can get broken and you need it to basically fix it.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you very much.